All right, so just imagine waking up one morning, you grab your coffee, you go to check your feeds, and nothing. Huge chunks of the internet have just vanished. Well, for millions of people, this wasn't some hypothetical scenario. This actually happened. So let's get into it and break down what really went on the day the internet basically just stumbled. You know that feeling, right? That moment of pure confusion where you're asking, is it just me? Is my Wi-Fi down? Well, turns out it wasn't just you. Not even close. What started as a totally normal Tuesday morning pretty quickly spiraled into this massive cascading outage that took down some of the biggest names on the web. And we saw just how big this was almost instantly. I mean, if you looked at Down Detector, the site where everyone goes to complain when something's broken, the reports for just one platform, X, just skyrocketed past 5,600 in a matter of minutes. This was way more than just a little glitch. It was like a huge signal flare telling us something much, much bigger was going on. So the big question is, how did a problem that seemed to start with just one social media site end up rippling across the entire digital world? Well, this is a classic case of the domino effect. Okay, so the first domino we all saw fall was X, what we used to call Twitter. For a lot of people, this was the real canary in the coal mine. Think about it. When a platform that's so central to the daily news cycle just goes dark, yeah, people are going to notice, and they're going to notice fast. But at almost the exact same time, another name started popping up in all the technical reports. A name you might not know, Cloudflare. Now, most of us don't really interact with Cloudflare directly, but trust me, as we're about to find out, they are one of the absolute critical pillars holding up a massive part of the internet we use every single day. And just look at this list. It really gives you a sense of how widespread this whole thing was. I mean, we're talking about every corner of your digital life. Your work tools like OpenAI and Canva, your music on Spotify, even stuff like League of Legends and online betting sites. It was everything, just poof, offline. It was clear the problem was spreading, and fast. So you've got all these services failing at once. For engineers everywhere, the immediate challenge was to cut through all that chaos and figure out, where is this fire actually coming from? And that was the billion-dollar question, right? Were all these outages connected? Was it some huge coordinated attack? Or, and this is the really unlikely option, did dozens of the world's biggest websites all just happen to fail on their own at the exact same time? The odds of that are, well, they're astronomical. So to really get this, we need to talk about what Cloudflare actually is. Don't think of them as a website you visit. Think of them more like a giant secure highway system for the internet. Their job is to direct all the traffic, make sure your websites load super fast, and they also act as a shield against attacks. So when that highway system completely shuts down, it really doesn't matter how great your car is. You're not going anywhere. And then we got it. Confirmation straight from the source. Cloudflare's own status page lit up with this message. And in the middle of all that chaos, this was a huge moment. It basically told every engineer out there, hey, stop looking at your own stuff. The problem is deeper. It's at the foundation. Suddenly, the entire internet's focus snapped to just one company. And to their credit, the fix came pretty darn quick. Within about an hour of them publicly saying, yep, it's us, Cloudflare announced they'd found the problem and were rolling out a solution. And just 9 minutes after that, you could see services start to flicker back online. But the big questions were still hanging in the air. What on earth just happened? And this brings us to the real heart of the matter, the core lesson from this whole event. See, this wasn't a story about dozens of different companies all failing at once. This was the story of one single point of failure. So let's circle back to that question we had at the beginning, but let's look at it a different way. What's more likely, that lightning struck 20 different trees at the exact same time, or that the ground that all of them were rooted in suddenly just gave way? All the evidence was pointing to the ground. And that's exactly what cybersecurity expert Graham Stewart said. He basically cut right through all the noise and confirmed what a lot of people were already thinking. This was absolutely 100% not a coincidence. And here's the key takeaway, the thing you really need to get. X didn't fail, Spotify didn't fail, Facebook didn't fail, nope. What actually failed was a foundational service, a single layer that all of these companies relied on. They were all built on top of it. And when that layer crumbled, everything built on it came crashing down too. So here's the anatomy of how this kind of failure happens. Step 1 is reliance. You have dozens of companies all channeling their services through one single platform, like Cloudflare, because hey, it's efficient. Then, step 2, failure. That one platform has a problem. And the result? Step 3 is a total collapse, because there's no backup route. There's just nowhere else for all that internet traffic to go. What's scary is that this one event shines a massive spotlight on a much deeper, more systemic problem with how the modern internet is built. It's like a hidden weakness that we all kind of forget is even there until something like this happens. And this brings us to what I think is the great paradox of the internet. The whole idea, the original promise, was a decentralized network. It was supposed to be resilient because there was no single point of failure. But if you look at the reality of the internet today, it's the exact opposite. It has become incredibly centralized. Look, this centralization didn't happen for no reason. It's all about efficiency, cost, convenience, all good things. But the consequence is that we've basically put a mind-boggling amount of trust and a huge chunk of global internet traffic into the hands of just a handful of giant companies. We're talking Cloudflare, Amazon Web Services, and Microsoft Azure. That's pretty much the whole game. And here's the thing, this is not a one-off. Not at all. This outage fits right into a pattern of similar massive outages that have hit the other big players, AWS and Azure, pretty recently. And every single time, the story is exactly the same. One of these giants stumbles, and half the internet goes down right along with it. This quote from Graham Stewart just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly explains why this is such a big deal. The bigger these foundational platforms get, the more catastrophic their failures are. The impact isn't small or contained. It spreads everywhere, instantly, and we all end up feeling it at the exact same time. So let's leave it with this thought. We've built this incredibly complex, super connected world that really truly depends on being online all the time. But the catch is, we've built this whole amazing thing on top of just a handful of foundations. And what this outage showed us, what it was a stark reminder of, is that we have to ask ourselves a very serious question. Just how strong are those foundations really?